Resident Evil Requiem is finally here, and I know you're probably excited to jump right in and start popping zombie heads with the soul of Leon's shoe, but before you get to all of that, it's good to have an idea of what you're in for. So, to that end, here are 11 things to know before you start playing Resident Evil Requiem. Like several other Resident Evil games, Resident Evil Requiem has a multi-protagonist structure. Unlike those other games, however, this time around you'll be swapping the baton of player control back and forth between Grace and Leon all throughout the game, rather than them being separate campaigns. While Leon and Grace handle basically the same, there are some noteworthy differences between their playstyles that you'll want to make sure you know. Leon's inventory capacity is humongous, while Grace's is very limited and requires the usage of classic Resident Evil magic boxes. More on that later. Leon has a permanent melee weapon in his hatchet that can lose durability, but can always be restored by holding L1 and pressing square. Grace, meanwhile, must find makeshift knives in order to protect herself against zombie grabs, or slash away at enemies from close range. These knives will eventually break, leaving her defenseless up close until she can find another. Also note that Leon's hatchet can open up the warp doors on these little cabinets that usually hide some goodies, so don't worry about them while you're wandering the halls as Grace. Both characters have a melee attack when you stagger an enemy, but Grace's is meant more as a way to knock a zombie down and run past it, while Leon's can kill zombies outright, and remains a go-to method of saving ammo. Leon can also parry enemy attacks by pressing L1 right before an attack hits him, if his hatchet still has durability. Grace cannot. Leon can interact with dropped weapons like chainsaws and fire axes. Chainsaws can be wielded as a weapon, though you might want to wait for them to stop spinning before you try to pick them up. Fire axes, meanwhile, can be automatically hurled at nearby enemies. While Grace's weaponry is comparatively limited next to Leon's, she starts with access to the best gun in the game, the titular Requiem Magnum. More on this one later as well. Both characters can eventually craft, but Grace can only do so by mixing crafting parts with infected blood that she must harvest from either dead enemies or spots in the environment. Grace must also find blood specimens in order to learn new crafting recipes, while Leon just learns how to craft ammo types just by picking up new guns. What a badass. Resident Evil Requiem comes with 3 starting difficulties to customize your experience. If you're looking to just experience the story and have very limited friction from combat, you can select Casual. If you're more accustomed to the modern style of Resident Evil, featuring unlimited saves and autosaves at pivotal moments, Modern is the difficulty for you. You can also drop the difficulty down to Casual at any time while playing this mode. And finally, if you're all about the classic RE experience, you can select Standard Classic. This is the difficulty designed for longtime fans looking for that added bit of extra challenge that comes from having to find and manage ink ribbons to save. Of course, a harder difficulty will unlock after beating the game as well for the hardcore Resident Evil heads out there. One new feature of Resident Evil Requiem, though it was added to Village post-launch, is the ability to choose whether you want to play in first person, a la Resident Evil 7 and 8, or third person, a la the remakes of Resident Evil 2 and 3 and Resident Evil 4. Capcom recommends playing in first person while in control of Grace and third person while using Leon. This makes sense, as Grace's sections are meant to be more about immersive horror, while Leon's are much more about high-tension action that greatly benefit from having a wider look at your surroundings. That said, the choice is yours. Third person has more gameplay benefit, as you'll be able to see over and around objects without having to actually peek around them, and there are some cool moments that are unique to the perspective, like Grace tripping and falling while running away from a pursuing monster. But in first person, you get cool scripted moments like this one, since the developers are able to know exactly where the camera is going to be pointed. There are a bunch of settings in the options menu beyond just the first third person perspective toggle that you'll definitely want to know about. If you're playing in first person and you're getting motion sick from the wobbling that the camera does to simulate footsteps, you can turn that down, especially since the default maxes it out at 10. Beyond that, you can change your sensitivity, aim assist settings, and there are a host of accessibility presets, just to name a few of the things that you might want to adjust before you start. Zombies in Requiem maintain a smidge of their former human selves even in zombie form, which means that you'll have workers that obsess over turning the lights off, patients with IV stands that become aggravated by loud noises, and singers that can belt out screams that will stun and disorient you. Some of these behaviors can be manipulated and taken advantage of. For example, the zombie that obsesses over the light switch. He's blocking my way forward here, but if I turn on another light, hide for a little, wait for him to come out to flip it off, I can sneak past him and get by without having to waste resources. The IV stand guys that get enraged over loud noises can actually be used to take out other zombies by tossing an empty bottle over by them. They'll think that they were the ones who made the noise and proceed to beat the living crap out of them. Fun times. One of the unique challenges that Grace must face in her gameplay sections are the Stalker type enemies. Think Mr. X in RE2, Nemesis in RE3, the Bakers in RE7, etc. These are extremely dangerous foes that roam around an environment and are extremely difficult to kill without a handful of well-placed Requiem bullets. Stealth is the name of the game here. Always keep an ear out for their unique noises, and be careful about just sprinting around corners in areas that you thought were clear, because you just might run into one. If you have the bullets for your Magnum, they are worth killing, as you'll remove a persistent obstacle throughout a section of the map, and they'll also drop valuable charms. The chef can even be taken out with a single well-placed Requiem shot on modern difficulty, or a single Hemolytic injection if he hasn't spotted you. If you're playing as Leon, you won't have the Magnum, but your expanded arsenal should nevertheless be able to bring them down without too much difficulty. Just like in previous Resident Evil games, inventory management is key in Requiem. As mentioned earlier, Grace's inventory is extremely limited, so you'll have to use a storage box in order to avoid having to make the agonizing decision of whether or not you should discard something in your inventory and lose it permanently in order to pick up a critical item. Some general things to keep in mind while managing your inventory: for one, always offload antique coins, ink ribbons, and any puzzle items or keys that you don't know what to do with yet. Coins you can save until you get enough to buy something that you want from the parlor. You can either toss these into the box or just insert them into the parlor boxes, as you don't have to pay the whole cost immediately. Ink ribbons, if you're playing on the classic difficulty, can be pulled out of your box whenever you want to save, since they're always in the same room as a typewriter. And puzzle items or keys can be returned for once you know the spot that they're supposed to go. Thankfully, key items will also be automatically disposed of when there's no more use for them. Aside from that, you should only take what you need to survive. You don't need 2 or 3 bundles of handgun ammunition on you at all times, nor do you need that lone green herb when you've already got a full heal injection, or that extra blood pack when you've already got full blood, or a ton of scrap metal for crafting. If you gear up like Rambo, you're either going to waste a ton of resources on fights that could have been avoided, or you're going to hoard them and not have enough space to pick up any of the really valuable stuff. Generally, I like to leave a safe room with a fully loaded gun, a single slot reserved for handgun ammo, and 1 or 2 full heals. Everything else can be picked up as you go and dropped off at the next opportunity. As mentioned before, early on as Grace, you'll gain the ability to either craft handgun bullets or Hemolytic Injectors. The 8 shots of handgun ammo cost 40 blood and a piece of scrap, and the injector costs a little more at 60 blood and a piece of scrap. It may seem like bullets are the greater value, but consider the fact that injectors are an instant kill on unaware enemies. You can even use them on staggered enemies that you've shot just a few times in the leg, and they don't leave a corpse behind that can eventually turn into a Blisterhead. Generally, I would recommend crafting injectors unless you're completely out of handgun bullets, as the injectors are far more rare than handgun ammo, and they're just more efficient when it comes to killing zombies. Speaking of Blisterheads, these are a new type of enemy that are very similar to the dreadful Crimson Head zombies from Resident Evil 1 Remake. When you kill a zombie, occasionally, when you return to the room later on, the zombie will convulse and its head will transform into something that looks kind of like a licker from RE2. These Blisterheads are incredibly durable, extremely fast, love to dart out of the way when you start aiming at them, and can hit you with insta-kill moves. If you're playing as Grace, you may want to heavily consider just running the heck away once you hear them start transforming, as getting into a fight with a Blisterhead is sure to cost you a lot of resources, whether that be ammo, health, or both. That said, if you're looking for something to use your Requiem bullets on, Blisterheads are a worthwhile choice. If you're Leon, they're prime targets for your shotgun, grenades, and whatever other form of heavy weaponry you've got on you. There are 3 main collectibles that you'll want to keep an eye out as you're playing. Bobbleheads are the main persistent collectible, and there's a nice reward for collecting all of them throughout the game, and are often fairly deviously hidden in nooks and crannies, so you'll need to keep your eyes peeled for them. Antique coins are an exclusive collectible for Grace and are found all over the place, but you can usually expect to find them in safes and by killing the singing zombies. You can spend them in the parlor on a handful of very useful upgrades, like a pouch to expand your inventory by 2 slots, which is super important and I recommend getting that immediately, a health upgrade, a gun stabilizer that increases damage and handling, and an upgrade to your maximum blood storage capacity so you can fill up your injector with more blood for crafting. Note that Leon cannot pick up these coins, so make sure you find all of them as Grace and get all these upgrades before moving on from Rhodes Hill. And lastly, there are lockpicks, which are used to unlock the various simple locks. These have been in prior Resident Evil games and are exactly the same in their function here. Generally, they will have rare metals and can be used as crafting materials for Requiem bullets, once Grace learns the crafting recipe. Usually in Resident Evil games, the Magnum is one of the last weapons you'll get, but in RE9, Grace will get it pretty much right from the outset. As you imagine, this is both your last resort in standard zombie encounters and your first look when it comes to dealing with Stalker type enemies like the Chef or Chunk. If you need to use it against regular zombies, make sure it's in a fight against a bunch of them and try to line up your shot so that you can take out multiple enemies at once. If you plan to use it to take down a Stalker, try to sneak up on them and target their head while they're unaware. If you shoot them while spotted, just expect to spend a little more ammo. And those are 11 things that you should know before jumping into Resident Evil Requiem. Thanks for watching, and for more Resident Evil Requiem tips, make sure to check out our video on mistakes to avoid, important items to make sure you don't miss early on, and much more. And for everything else, keep it here on IGN.